Welcome to Wisconsin in Focus. I'm Benjamin Yount, the Center Square's contributor here in Wisconsin, filling in for J.D. Davidson, who has the day off. Wisconsin's prisons have gotten some unflattering headlines, have been uncovered to have serious problems, have been a mess, according to the people who work there and the people who have family members there. Earlier in the week, the Assembly Committee on Corrections, the committee that's inside the state assembly tasked with keeping our prisons safe for both workers and inmates, held a hearing after the warden and 8 others were arrested at the prison in Waupun. They're facing charges for the deaths of 2 inmates. But as I said, it's just one of several problems that have been plaguing Wisconsin's prisons under Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers. There's a lot of talk of hiring new guards. There was a lot of talk of the budget process. There was a lot of talk from Department of Correction officials about how they are just now discovering this. After all, the current acting secretary of the Department of Corrections has only been on the job a couple of months. The most powerful testimony, however, came from prison advocates and former guards, people who have family members inside the state's prisons, and they painted a picture of chaos, dysfunction, retaliation. They painted a place that not only would you not want to go, but even people who have been in and out of prison find to be well below what the standards should be. The former secretary of the Department of Corrections, Kevin Carr, got a lot of the blame. He's not there any longer. He's stepped down. Lawmakers blamed the governor. Democrats blamed Republicans. But again, when it came to help, the only real pleas came from the advocates. Rebecca Aubart, with the ladies of the SCI, literally pleaded with lawmakers to do something.
We need ombuds, and we need an outlet for people who have been rehabilitated to stop overcrowding our system. And again, we did definitely have a staffing crisis, but we have a population crisis. Every single facility is overpopulated by their own standards, several hundred people. And while I said before, we are nonpartisan, we are regular people. We don't know how this process works. When we started advocating in Madison, we contacted everybody. And Madison and Clancy's office were the only ones that responded to us. And whether they went about it the right way or not, I don't know, but they were the only ones that responded to our outcries. And we are begging you guys to work together. One side cannot fix it. Everybody has to work together. We need an ombuds. We need some accountability and oversight that is not coming from the DOC or coming from the governor's office. It needs to be independent.
Though sadly, we're not the only tears of the afternoon. The idea of an ombudsman comes from Minnesota, which apparently has set the national standard for an independent-esque watchdog for its prison systems. And Albert said it's not a magic wand or a silver bullet. She said Minnesota's ombudsman has made things, well, a slightly less worse. Incrementally better was the word that we used in the story. But the problem seems to be that when these advocates, when the families of inmates go to the Department of Corrections, they're met either with indifference or, as she put, retaliation. Republican State Rep Janelle Brandtjen, who has never been a fan of Wisconsin's current governor, said the blame here has to land squarely at Governor Tony Evers' feet. He is, after all, the governor, she said, and governors own. But Evers ran on a platform of reforming the state's prisons. He wanted to simply lock up fewer people, bring more people out of Wisconsin's prisons. That hasn't happened since 2002, when a story exposed that the governor's parole board was simply letting almost anyone out, including hardened killers and rapers, and some of those people would go back and commit new crimes. The question going forward is what's going to happen, and is anything going to change? Will there be a trial for the 9 from Waupun's prison who are now facing charges for the death of an inmate? Most of that be to neglect and mismanagement, official misconduct. No one's alleging that they killed this inmate. They just didn't do anything to stop his death. There are also questions about drugs and cell phones and the typical mismanagement and crime that goes on in prison. So while you have the criminal case, you're also going to have this legislative push. The thing that struck me as I covered this was there was still some inner legislative fighting. Democrats and Republicans couldn't agree on who's to blame. They couldn't agree on who's not to blame. And this doesn't bode well for the future when there's much more of an anger, a fight, an upset at the process that tends not to provide pretty solid outcomes. You can find out about more on this story, read the full story, and keep up with all of our others over at our website, thecentersquare.com. I'm Benjamin Yount. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe.